Yes. Okay, for you on Zoom, we've called the meeting to order already, but haven't conducted any business, because we had a little technical difficulty, but we're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first item of business is public comment, and the way we do this is we'll take comment from people in the room, and then we'll go to people on Zoom. And so I'll wait if there's, well, I'll just go through the rules. It's a 3-minute time to comment if you want to make a comment to the Board of Commissioners. This is not a give and take discussion, argument, whatever type of thing. This is just a time for the public to make statements to the commission. Like I said, 3 minutes, and the rules are we ask you to keep it civil and don't get personal. So is there anybody in the room that would like to make a comment? Yes. Oh, and one last thing, I'm sorry. Just state your name and if you're affiliated with a group or an organization, just so everybody knows. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Sue Oliver. I live in North Morrow County. Commissioner Winholtz is my neighbor. I'm back here before you today. I was here a couple of weeks ago, expressing my concerns about what's going on with the Columbia Development Authority and that board. And frankly, our Morrow County representation on that board. Because I was very disappointed at that meeting I went to February when Commissioner Winholtz had nothing to say, no contribution whatsoever in terms of Morrow County's position on what's going on that board. From what I saw, Mr. Tovey of the Umatilla tribes was the only one who is fighting to try to straighten things out. I did a formal request, as we discussed last time, to put this item on your agenda to discuss, and in your email response to me that you replied that I think it is very important that Morrow County take no action or engage in any public meeting discussion on these matters until the legal landscape has been cleared away and the Board of Commissioners knows exactly where things stand with the CDA and especially its relationship with the CDA employees. And I'm sorry, Chair Sykes, I really feel like that answer, for one, the legal landscape could take years to clean up. We don't have time. We don't have time here. You have received credible information that there is some things going very wrong at the CDA board. And I am here, as we were all probably at Senator Merkley's town hall yesterday. And his advice, and I am following it, is to hold you accountable. You ran for this position, you get paid to do this job, and I, as a citizen, expect you to do the job. So I pointed out in my request that you are a signature to the 2014 intergovernmental agreement that lays out your obligations and duties. And it includes following Oregon records laws. It includes budgetary items. It includes contract items. It includes establishing some sort of meeting schedule. That whole CDA, none of that has happened. There's no bylaws. There are no regular meeting dates. They're required to hold regular meetings. I went back through years and they very rarely hold the number of meetings. They're supposed to have no less than one meeting a quarter. They elect their officers on a whim. I found a meeting where I was quite confused about what was happening on the election. Why they have an election in December and 2 months later, we're at the end of the meeting. I found a way at the end of the meeting as, oh, by the way,
3
we're
seconds.
So I will be following up. I will be sending the same request to the Board of Umatilla County, the tribes, every signature to this agreement, in particular the Port of Morrow, who has completely failed in its duties. And you are doing nothing. You're going to sit back and wait for this to happen. You have the authority to control what's going on as a member of the CDA board and a responsibility. And if Mr. Winholtz is unable to participate in any sort of discussions and defend the county's position, then we need a new representative to that board. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And you'll hear me hold you accountable every meeting for the next 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the room that has a public comment? Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to make a public comment? Do you see any hands up?
Usually they jump to the front if they did see anything.
Say anything? Okay, we'll close our public comment and now we'll have consideration and adoption of agenda.
Any changes to the agenda? Matt? No. I move for approval of the agenda as presented. Aye, second.
Then move the second to move for approval of the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Next, we'll move on to our department reports, and our first one up is the planning department monthly report. Tamara.
She is out today on a planned absence, but she did submit a written report.
Yeah, she submitted a very good written report, so we have that. Okay, then we'll get the sheriff's office monthly report. Brian, you're here.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Brian Snyder, Under Sheriff. So this report, civil and parole and probation are full, still, so that's good. We just hired or offered so when it comes to dispatch, we had 4 openings. We have filled one of them, with a 17-year veteran. She starts on March 31st, so we're excited. She's certified, holds her advanced certificate, so she'll be able to hit the ground running. And we are in the final stages with a second uncertified applicant. So there'll be the whole training process with that. So there'll be a little bit of a delay before we see a real huge benefit, but it'll be nice to get that one of those positions filled. So hopefully we're down to just 2 openings. When it comes to the patrol, we just hired one on Monday, so we're looking good. We are still on schedule to be fully staffed by June. On the patrol side there's a few, we gotta wait. Well, there's one that's a lateral and he still can't start till May, but if he can, I mean, that'll be a huge benefit. And we have a second one that's a lateral, and if he puts in, that'll be again another huge benefit because the turnaround on the training is about a month because they're already certified and have their certificates. We don't have to send them to the 4 or 16-week academy and that kind of stuff. So we'll see the benefit a lot quicker. I wanted to point out 3 different incidences that's happened in the last couple weeks with our staff. On February 22nd, there was a report of a stolen vehicle out of the Dalles. A pursuit was initiated out of county, and for unknown reasons to me, the officer that was pursuing at the time ended the pursuit. One of our deputies picked that pursuit up as it was coming into Morrow County, and was able to, along with a couple of other deputies and other outside agencies, continue to pursue that vehicle. And it stopped. The pursuit stopped at the end of Patterson Ferry along the Columbia River, where the vehicle was recovered. The sole occupant, the driver, decided to try to swim across the Columbia River, changed his mind fairly quickly and came back to shore. He was transported to the hospital just for evaluation to make sure, and then he was transported as well, but there was no injuries on that. And our deputies with their tactics and communication did an outstanding job, so I wanted to bring that up. 4 days later, our canine officer was on duty and solo and received a report of a theft that had occurred on the north end of Morrow County, where a couple motors and some wire was stolen. She was able to locate that vehicle within about 10 minutes of that report. A pursuit, she had tried to stop that vehicle. Of course, they decided not to stop, and after about an hour and multiple agencies being involved, they finally came to a stop just inside of a couple miles inside of Umatilla County, where all 3 suspects was arrested without injury, and all the stolen property was recovered. They did an outstanding job safely, and tactically, through the investigation, they continue to work it just beyond the pursuit. And it looks like they have gathered some information and evidence that's going to lead to a to another case where there was about $40,000 worth of damage done, that we might be able to solve that case as well. And then on March 14th, Hermiston PD had a burglary at the ranch and home, and they requested our canine, and our canine officer went over, and after an extensive search, our canine officer was able to locate that suspect, and where he had stolen two handguns. When she located her, and the canine located him, they were both loaded, chambered, hammers back. But he was taken into custody without any injuries to him or any of the officers. So our officers are doing really good work. I wanted to kind of spotlight them this month. Those are a couple big ones that we've dealt with, and they were kind of, as you can see by the dates, they were fairly close together, but they're doing a good job. And again, I wanted to make sure I spotlighted them. It's about all I got, unless you guys have any questions.
I have a quick question. Does Umatilla not have a canine? Not that I think I think it's a real feather in our cap to have one.
Yes.
It's a very, very good asset for the sheriffs. I was just curious that a county their size.
I believe Umatilla County has one, but I'm not sure what their, so I can't answer that, Commissioner.
Yeah,
to be
that's fine.
honest. I know they did have one. I'm not sure what the status is, if it was on
Yeah.
some type of medical leave or something like that.
Trying to make any judgment on you helping or anything like that. It just my curiosity is.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's, what I'm a little assumption on my part, ours was the one on duty. And so a quicker response that way.
Any other questions, Brian?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have our treasurer's monthly report. She has a written report. Jaylene, are you on Zoom or just a written report for us? You see her now anywhere?
I do not.
Okay. Next up, we'll have our accounts payable monthly report, and Kevin, yours is just a written report also. Okay, next up is our county administrator report.
Yes, my apologies. I had done a written report with the plan of starting to do kind of a highlight of the activities the last 2 weeks. But evidently I didn't hit the generate report, so it wasn't in the packet. So I have a printed copy here. We will have it available as an updated packet afterwards. Just several things. We've been working on the budget. Kevin's been leading that. We've had several meetings with stakeholders and the design team on courthouse construction. I met with the Collins and the Rotary representatives, discussing impacts to parking and access and such. Really good interactions, and some people really being willing to open and look outside the box, and that I appreciate the interaction with those stakeholders. We've been working on the wildfire threat map. I've attended the conference call 2 Wednesdays ago with Representative Smith, and we have a letter that's going to be presented a little bit later on there. But it seems a consensus that people are very concerned about that wildfire map, and Representative Smith believes that there is a movement to have some alternates done, if not just do away with the map. So they're working on that. Some other things that we're working on. We've got the strategic plan and capital improvement plan. Met with the consultant. We should have that scheduled very soon to you. And he's reaching out to the committee on that, the advisory committee that was appointed last year. And on capital improvement plan, Chair Sykes and I are working on that, and we'll likely have something presented at the next meeting on that. I was able to tour the Reese Training Center with the sheriff and the police, looking at options for a firing range, and had several other meetings to help facilitate West Glen feasibility study. And the other thing is an interesting item is Wheeler County is going through an ambulance service plan rewrite. They're having issues with their volunteer ambulances, and they've said, we hear Morrow County went through this, and so they might ask me to come down and just help them out a little bit, at least share with what our experience is. And so I might be traveling down there to help our neighbor out on that. So other items are in the written report. I'll start to make this a pattern of having the high level items. And if you have any questions on any of those, would be happy to discuss those, and we'll continue to do that in the future.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I have more of a comment on the wildfire threat map. Chair Sykes asked me to work with EOCA on establishing what the broader region was doing, and we had a meeting scheduled last week and it got moved to next week. So I will have a report on that for our next meeting. So I just wanted to follow up on that.
Thank you for that, Gus.
Yeah.
And, any other questions on that? Jeff? Nope. Okay. And just my 2 bits worth on the wildfire, we still have to look for water here, but, it's one of the most asked about things about, he'll ask, cause he knows too, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People are really concerned about this. It's not just one person that came to us, it's multiple people have asked me. Yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of interest in that, so, okay. So we got our administrative report. Next up would be the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything out of that?
A,
Okay.
the minutes.
Okay.
Other than that, I'll approve for items B and C.
Anything else? Anybody want to pull anything out or? Okay.
No, I'm good.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda for B and C.
So moved.
I second.
Moving second, any further discussion, all in favor,
Aye.
all opposed, motion carried. Okay, now we'll talk.
So on
Yeah.
A, it's just that there was a minor typo. I printed out a copy of what it was, gave to Valerie, so I will move for approval, and it's with them being corrected as I present.
Okay.
Can you share with us what that correction was?
Sure, under Aaron Palmquist, it said it was City of Boardman instead of.
I saw that.
City of Irrigon.
Yes. Yes. I agree with that.
Okay, did I hear a second on that?
Yes, I second
Okay,
that.
then move the second to approve the minutes with the correction stated. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, that takes care of all the consent agenda. Now we'll move on to our business items. Approval of courthouse master funding agreement, Oregon Judicial Department, Matt's got that.
Yes, so what we have on here are 2 funding agreements to help facilitate and formalize the agreement between the state and the county on funding for the new circuit courthouse. What you have before you is not a finalized contract. We're still working with a few questions on with the state on that as far as coverage of different items. Right now, what it has, the final cost will be the $35 million that have been discussed before. The layout that we currently have shows that 76% of the building will be under state control, state operations. So that includes circuit court, public defenders, and their share of the public space. With their 50% of what they have, that relays to a more or less a 38% share of the cost will be theirs, which means they'll be covering $13.2 million of the project, and we will be covering $21.8 million of that. So those will be the numbers that we're looking at. The agreement that you have, there's a few things that I need to finalize with the state, is just where they want to cut off the final design amounts, particularly on the first amendment to it, which we can draw on later this year. Generally, that takes us through final design of the project. However, this document was drafted when we were still considering Boardman as the option, and there's a little bit of language in there that says that this will not cover the work that was done at the fairgrounds. So I need to get that changed, and I'm also pushing to make sure that they cover the costs that we incurred at other sites, because it was not something that we opened up. It's something that the state and the circuit court opened up as far as looking at places outside of Heppner. So those are the 2 last few items that we're doing. So the top caps that we're looking at is the project will not exceed $35 million. We're looking at a $13.2 million share from the state, and the county would be $21.8 million. The state has asked for a deadline to have this submitted by March 31st. And so I've got to work out these final details as we're looking toward. So there's two options that we could do. The first one would be hold a special session when this is all finalized, or under the understanding that we have the caps agreed on, to authorize myself to continue getting this finalized and to allow Chair Sykes to sign on it once it is finalized within these caps. If there's any changes in the caps, we would reconvene for a special session. And so asking for the commission's direction on that. Like I said, we do have some final numbers to put in there as shown on the contracts. If you're open to approving us to proceeding with that, have to do that. Otherwise, we can reconvene a special session next week.
I would prefer a special session next week.
I would.
Okay.
So one of the things I noted in here, and you kind of addressed it, because it was crafted when you were talking about Boardman. On page 4 of the agreement, under PP, it talks about approximately 2 acres on the corner of Olson Road and Columbia Avenue.
Yes. So we
Make
have
sure
the,
that that gets changed.
we've got that description in the.
I was wondering if I should point that out. Dave. You know, this is a formal contract.
Well, that mean we'd build it in Heppner and they wouldn't refund us any money. So, yeah, so, we'll plan to have a meeting. It'll probably be, next Wednesday, if not a little bit later, just so we can get this all taken care of.
Thank you. Yes, I would feel much more comfortable, because that was not the only spot where the language was no longer correct.
So,
Okay. So, we'll go to B.
so this is the contract, for the construction management, general contractor. Apologize, Doug Carl is out of the state, and so I was gonna have him join in for description on this. So the CMGC process, as you may well know, is where we convene with a construction manager, general contractor at the beginning of a final design, which allows us to value engineer during the process. Rather than having the architect go through, do a full design, we bid it out, and then we argue with the contractors on getting it down to the price that we thought. The idea is that the CMGC will work hand in hand with our design team during final design and be able to offer input and directions to keep the project within our budgetary constraints. We went through an RFP, as we originally said back in January 25th. The commission gave approval for Boughton Construction to serve as the CMGC. This encompasses the contract for it. We're asking for the approval of the commission so we can proceed with this. The CMGC does have a set amount for pre-construction services. So during this design phase, they're going to be charging us $100,000 to help do that. And then as we go through the design and the construction, they will be paid at 3.57% of the guaranteed maximum price. So they have their amount locked in about what they're going to be charged and what they'll be doing. So we ask for your consideration and approval of the contract. This has been reviewed by our design team and the design team legal counsel that they have on process, and we're asking for the commission's approval to proceed with this.
So on page 1 of exhibit E, it's page 107 of our packet.
Page 107.
And it's under recitals and A.
I think that's part of the courthouse master funding agreement.
Yes. So
Okay.
this one starts on
Okay.
page 120,
Okay, sorry.
125. So
So I did see that, but
we're gonna get rid of all the Boardman things on that other one.
So, no, I didn't see anything.
Okay,
Do I hear a
Jeff didn't see
motion
anything
to
then.
approve the,
I move to
CMC.
approve the CM contract as presented.
Second.
you wanna go with the motion that's suggested? Has a name in there.
For Boughton
Motion to
Construction.
approve CMGC contract with Boughton Construction.
Sure.
That
I'll-
was suggested motion. I'm not sure, you
What
know.
page is it, Dave?
It's
Was
page
it
125. Yeah, all right.
Mm, it's the attorney that decides whether it matters or not.
Well, I'll make a amendment to my own motion. We can do that. Okay,
Okay.
and I will make the motion. I move to approve the CMGC contract with Fountain Construction as presented.
Then moved in second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Okay, next up would be C, 6C, North Morrow Vector Control District Annual Report. Greg?
Hi,
Hello.
thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
So, I don't get to do this every year. Usually, I have a board member, needs to be not reinstated, but renewed. And in this situation, I present to you the annual report. Our annual report, not every district does one, but according to ORS 452, you're required to do that. So our district does provide you folks with an annual report. You don't always have me come before you to report, to present this report. But I do send you electronic copies every year for your review. Anyway, just to kind of recap the 2024 season, we really didn't have much of a winter in 2023, so it didn't have a real impact on the mosquitoes as far as like any natural control or anything. So the only real winter that we had was in January, and we had that like 3 week stretch of like really cold weather that we get around here with the fog and everything, and that's not enough to do anything. But although I did go to a meeting in Montana at about that same time, mid-January, it was 30 below zero in Great Falls, Montana. So wrong time I wasn't vacationing, I was on business. I had to give a presentation to the Montana Mosquito Control Association on what we do, because they are basically babes in the woods in Montana, and we've been at this mosquito game for quite a while. And so they're always wanting to tap into know more about what we do. And plus I was on the American Mosquito Control Board. I just completed my term on that board, and they want people of authority like that to come and talk to them and to listen and to learn. But anyway, the mosquito season was fairly routine, with the exception of West Nile virus was actually lower than usual. And maybe that was because that we didn't have a lot of moisture, we didn't have a lot of standing water, and that is problematic. And then if we have a drought during the summertime, that can also increase the viremia in the area, and it concentrates everything. Like our mosquito sources are concentrated. So like this one mosquito called Culex tarsalis, it's our disease transmitter. It's our West Nile virus mosquito. And she is looking for those bodies of water or those water sources where she can lay her eggs and to reproduce. Well, one of the main areas that we have around here for that to happen is not the Columbia River per se, but it's the Umatilla National Wildlife Refuge, which sandwiches itself right between the communities of Boardman and Irrigon. And in fact, this year we did have 3 positive mosquito pools, and we were just to kind of back up a little bit. We routinely set traps like 25 mosquito traps a week in each area. So the Boardman area and the Irrigon area, they routinely get trapped. So we do that twice a week, and then we bring those mosquitoes back to our facility. And then I have a couple of seasonal techs that will take those mosquitoes, and they will ID them down to species, and they will count every single mosquito in those traps. And then they will package those mosquitoes in pools of 10 to 50, and they will send those to Oregon State Veterinarian Diagnostic Lab for PCR testing. We don't do any in-house testing because we know that our in-house testing is nowhere near as good as Oregon State's. And so we send it directly to, our turnaround time for knowing what our mosquitoes, if they had any virus, is like 3 days. So that's good enough. And primarily when we do our fogging activities that's our ultra low volume spraying at night. I look at the species of mosquitoes that we're trapping, and I look at the density of the mosquitoes. And so if we're getting a high density of mosquitoes, that already triggers me to say we're sending trucks out. And we have threshold levels. Like if we capture 10 of those mosquitoes in town, we're fogging. And we're within the confines of those cities. But outside of that, we ramp that up just a little bit, and we're a little bit more forgiving outside. But then as we move further into disease control, like where if we starting to find more and more and more of them, then what we do is we reduce our threshold levels, and 10 is our threshold level. Now, if there are 80s of biting mosquitoes that most people notice, those are threshold levels around 25. All right, so this year we had 3 positives on the federal refuge. We actually went to our refuge manager over in Burbank and talked with him. He's new but really receptive to mosquito control, which is refreshing. And we just laid everything out for him and documented everything. Had our county health officials here in Morrow County, which are excellent, by the way, and they submit a letter to him and saying that yes, this poses a public health threat, and North Morrow Vector Control needs to do some adulticide activity, because at that point, larviciding, which is what we do most of the time where we introduce a mosquito larvicide into the water to control the mosquitoes. Well, when you're starting to see the positives, that isn't going to do you any good. You have to actually go after them with adulticides. So that means you either put the plane in the air, or you go out with your ground units, which we have 3 of those that we send out routinely. We're going to have a 4th after this here in a few days. I'm getting another pickup truck, and we're going to have to put a fogger in that. So we're going to have 4, because we want to have, if we can split it and have 2 per community on a given night, then we'll do that. But anyway, so we have this other problem. Okay, so we were allowed to go ahead and go onto the federal refuge. So we went out and sprayed, and we did that 3 times because the virus showed up 3 times during the summer. And so about every 2 weeks. And so we went out, sprayed, and they agreed to that. And and that's awesome. That's a big step for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to grant us permission to be able to go out there and adulticide. They'll let us larvicide, but they adulticides. This refuge out here, this system that we have, most refuge systems will not allow adulticiding on the refuge. And so this is huge that they're allowing us to do that. And we want to keep that relationship going. So it's just really big deal for me to make sure I keep that line of communication and that relationship open. So anyway, that happened. Well, you guys probably noticed in the spring that we had a rather large influx of mosquitoes that like around mid-May and into June. And these were Aedes mosquitoes, real biters. And they were coming into, and this has been happening over the last like 3 to 5 years in Irrigon. And then Boardman started noticing them last year, actually. And so what's going on is the Corps of Engineers is raising the water level in the John Day Pool. And so that water level is, so on the Washington side of the river, there's no mosquito control at all. Okay, so Patterson and Whitcomb Island, and in those areas, there's none. All the way up to Plymouth, there's no control. There's control in Benton County further up north, but they don't come down this far, and it's not in their district, right? So anyway, we get the water floods the areas. There's lots of mosquito eggs that are laid because Aedes mosquitoes lay their eggs on dry ground and vegetation, where Culex mosquitoes, the disease transmitters, only lay their eggs in water. But we've got a handle on those. But we can't, this Aedes situation, we've got a handle on our side of the river. But on the Washington side, it's going unchecked. So we're getting Culex mosquitoes and Aedes mosquitoes, yeah.
So I'm sure you've already thought of this, but is there any way that we could find out how we could help encourage our neighbors on the other side of the river to do that control? Because, I mean, based on your report and what you're saying, you're doing everything right, and then it almost doesn't seem to matter because it's just coming over anyways. Is there any route that we could pursue that you see? to
Yeah, you're right.
address that?
You're going down the right trail, Commissioner Peterson. So we have been over there, and we actually brought over our county health folks from Morrow County. That's when Cherie was the director. And we went over there and laid out our case and everything. But basically, the bottom line was that we were told by the commissioners over in Benton County that the folks that live in and around on the Washington side, that they have to want the mosquito control. Well, there's not very many people that live over there. And I have had Lamb Weston call me before and say, hey, is there anything we can do about this? But anyway, the ball is rolling, okay? And so we weren't getting anybody over there that was biting on actually forming a district. We actually had Benton County's manager, she drew up 2 different districts for them. One that was more expanded, one that was more, condensed. And they just didn't bite on any of that. And so we said, okay, so crickets are chirping. They're still producing a lot of Aedes mosquitoes. These Aedes mosquitoes in the spring that they're producing are called Aedes increpidus. And there's also Aedes vexans. They're Aedes increpidus does not pass on disease, but Aedes vexans can. They're a secondary vector of disease. And then in the fall, we had the same problem. It's all about the water level and no control on that side of the river. So the Corps raises the water level. Now, why are they doing it in the spring like that? Well, sometimes it's just spring runoff, right? Because of the snow melt. Well, another reason is I found out because I had a meeting with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife on the 5th of February. This is the first time I've ever heard of this. So we found out that we have a like interest, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and us, on this water level on the Columbia River. And they said that the reason that they're raising the water level in the spring is they're trying to discourage the American pelican from nesting on those islands that are out on the river, like Blaylock Island. And so they're covering those islands up. So it discourages them from doing that because American pelicans are voracious feeders of salmonoids. And so that's one of their ways to discourage them from doing that, right? Well, there's this Forster's tern that likes to nest on the federal refuge out here. Well, when they raise that water level up, Forster's terns, they like to build their nests right on the water surface, right close to the shore, but right on the water. So if that water's coming up, it disturbs their nests. And so in Forster's terns are plentiful, but not that particular species. So they're really concerned about that particular species. So they don't want that water level to raise like that. So that's a concern of theirs. Now, the other concern is it's in the fall. Okay, so like in the fall, the Corps raising the water back up again. Okay, and that's maybe to benefit the migrating birds, for a resting area for them. But they've moved that up a month. So now, instead of raising the water level in the 1st of October, they're raising the water level the 1st of September. And this is causing us great pain with because now we have all this water that's being flooded into the Washington side of the river again, Whitcomb Island, and then Patterson Slough, and even this isn't our district, but in the Plymouth area, same thing. They're having the same problem. And so it's causing an Aedes vexans explosion. And we even knew when it was going to happen last year. We go over there and check it out. And it was like, oh man, it's going to happen the 3rd week in September. There's no doubt about it. And it did. And so that whole 4th week of September, the only thing that we could do was, and we didn't have the plane. That was the other thing that really, and I knew it was going to happen. I said, man, we got to get that plane right now. And that plane comes out of Utah. Well, we were a day late because Hurricane Helene happened, right? And those guys go, if there's any hurricanes anywhere, all my contingency aircraft goes to wherever that is. And that happened to be like in the Carolinas, and they were gone. And so we were on our own. So that's why we have our own equipment, our own foggers and everything that we can go out. It's not our preferred method of control of mosquitoes, but we have that available to us. So anyway, we went out that whole week and fogged every night, just, as much as we could. And we broke the pattern, right? And it was bad. When they hatched off like big time. We're talking hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes, right? And they're all hungry. And so that was a success story. And then Mother Nature kicked in, and we had cooler temperatures, and everything was fine at that point. Now, the year before that, our fall, we had like that extended fall in 2023, and that caused a heck of a mosquito problem because it went longer. I actually, when I was out in a fogging truck the night before I went to go to first period rifle elk hunting. That's how late it went. And so but people notice the biting mosquitoes, even though they're not really a disease transmitter, but mosquitoes in sheer numbers are a human health threat. There's no doubt about it. And, a lot of children are allergic to mosquito bites. And then there's secondary infections because they bite, and then you itch, and then you get a secondary infection. So yeah, we're always trying to figure out a better way. So now, when we had that meeting with the feds, they said that, we would possibly allow you to treat us. Okay. And, that's an interesting idea. And, so that's laid out there right now, but the feds are not going to they're not going to provide any money. Okay. They always act like they're really poor, and they've got other projects that they need to do and everything. And so really it's back at our problem again. But if we could, like fly, because we contract with a helicopter contractor for a larviciding. If we could go over there and we could do like one application over there, like in the fall, or one application over there in the spring, we possibly could control that situation a lot better, because right now there's no control. And it's like, we're protecting our citizens by going over there and doing that work. Now, the rub is they're doing NEPA studies right now. That's an environmental assessment, because they're trying to figure out how is this water level being increased, like the John Day Pool being raised, how is it impacting our special birds, right? And there's also another situation, like in the fall, they're wanting to burn their Phragmites. The Phragmites has just exploded. That tall grass that you see with the little puff on the top, it's taking over. And what they do is they go out there and they spray that, and then they dry it out, and then they want to burn it in the fall. Well, if they're raising the water level in the 1st of September and not the 1st of October, they can't burn. And they need to burn those shoots to control the Phragmites. So now this is kind of a good thing. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife and us, we have a like interest here. And so, but we asked them, we said, well, what about the Corps of Engineers? And they said, we don't know. We don't know if they will do anything with the water, manipulate that water level, maybe back to the way it was in the 1st of October. We don't know if that'll happen. I have a mosquito management plan with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and with the ODF&W. I think that maybe we're going to need to get a plan put together with the Corps of Engineers. Now, I really don't want to kick the sleeping dog too much, right? But I think we're going to have to need to make them aware of the situation for us, okay? But at least in the meantime, we have mosquito control, all right, which is good. We have something. Now, what if the U.S. Fish and Wildlife says, you know what, you guys can go over there and you guys can do your work on the other side of the river. Now, granted, they're going to benefit from it, the citizens over there, but we have way more people over here on our side. And at that time of the year, the prevailing winds tend to switch from the southwest, and we start seeing some of those out of the north. And that's what's pushing those mosquitoes across. even though the eighties Vexan is a very strong flyer and they could fly that river, cross that river like nothing. And so anyway, we've got some things in the woodworks. We're trying to keep that line of communication open. I was naive enough to think that, well, maybe we can get something put together where maybe we could go over there and do a few, we call them, a few tests, to see if it'll work. But talking to the West Umatilla manager, he's not that hopeful. He's thinking that we could be like 4 years down the road or 5. And I'm going, oh, great. So we're still back to the same thing, but at least we're talking. And the lines of communication are open, and I'll keep you guys up to date about what's going on with this. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to do our work. We're going to add another fogger to our program. And that's what's really great about the option levy that we just passed. That option levy is vitally important. We have to have that in order to put a fixed wing aircraft in the air when we have like an emergency situation because of our West Nile virus. Okay. And so, and we also, that puts that helicopter in the air so we can do larviciding activities, which keeps that Culex mosquito down that is our disease transmitter. And we have, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has no problem with us doing our larviciding on their refuge, and neither does the ODF&W. So that's really good. The only thing is that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife tries to manipulate us on what we use. And I'm telling you guys, I play hardball here. If it's good enough for everybody else that lives around in this community, then it's good enough for them. And it's not like I'm out there, we're not poisoning the environment, And I'm not going out there and kicking a 55-gallon drum barrel or something over into the water, and that's how it works. No, there's a lot of science that goes into this, right? And they know that, but they have a preconceived notion of what type of control products that they want us to use. And sometimes I think, with the especially with the drone, when we use the drone for mosquito applications, and I would like to use it a lot out there this spring. You have to use extended use products, and they don't like the active in those extended use products or anything residual. And I mean, there's no data out there that proves that these larvicides, these extended use larvicides, are going to harm the environment. Cause a frog to grow an extra leg or something. That's all. It's BS. It's just, but somebody goes out and blogs it. You know it. You've seen it. If it doesn't, anybody can do that. And once they do it, if an agency like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife wants to latch a hold of that, because some biologist somewhere says, I don't like mosquito control, or something, I'm going to do this, and they archive it, and then there it is. And then somebody will bring that up, when you're trying to do any type of control program. So anyway, that's our report. Everything that I think the season overall in 2024 was relatively uneventful, with the exception of some other things that I just discussed. But if we would not have had that water level increase, the level come up in the John Day Pool, it would have been, you guys would have thought that we were the most wonderful whatever, we wouldn't have noticed any mosquitoes, really. It would have been great. But because of that, we get reminded that there still are a lot of mosquitoes out there that can be produced. So with that said, that's my report. We're trying to expand our drone app part of our program. We don't know the status of our helicopter contractor. That's been a year to year, and not every helicopter contractor is just busting down our door to do work for us. And we have to train them on doing mosquito control, because it's not like going and doing ag work. It's more precise than that. And so we have to find the right contractor. Well, I've been toying with the fact of possibly contracting. There's like 3 major contractors out there now that we can contract them. They do drone applications instead of helicopter applications. So that's on the back burner. That's what we see maybe in the future. And so I've got that one out there and may have to pull that trigger if I have to, you know, down the road if we lose our helicopter contractor. He's been really great. It's South County Helicopter, by the way, if you want to know. Cliff Hoft, and he's done wonderful work for us over the years. And so we're just trying to look outside the box a little bit and hedge our bet on with the drones. And I've already sent over our letter of authorization. Justin and I have already done that. So basically we're getting our COA, our certificate of authorization. And so we should be good to go. We got way ahead of the game and we can just jump. And that's one other thing I want to say. That letter went out to Justin. I had it like the next day. That was awesome. And that's what we like to see. West Umatilla is still waiting for their letter. I don't mean to. But anyway, that's so, but that's great. I think that's wonderful that's the kind of turnaround that we have here. So, but anyway, that's my report. Did you want me just to move into the other part too?
Well, let's before,
Sure.
let's have, is there, anybody have any questions of Greg of his report?
No, I think that was very thorough.
Yeah,
Good.
it was
All right.
thorough. I didn't realize you're multi-disciplined, you know, the birds and the vegetation, and
I know. And
you gotta have some knowledge all over the place. don't
And
you?
we always feel like this time of year, if you ask any mosquito control manager, so how's it going? Oh, I'm behind. Yeah, you always feel like you're behind this time of year and until you absolutely get out there and you're going full bore. So anyway, and there is some water standing out there because we have had a lot of rain. That's the interesting thing. Lots of rain and there's a lot of water pooled out there. So hopefully it will go away quick before this.
Those are farmers.
Well, yeah. I know I know for farming and ag, this is wonderful. And but you know, and we're rooting for you, you know, but it's just like, yeah, I won't lie, you know, we like to see controlled water situations, right? That's what we like to see. So but we're out there monitoring all the time, so it doesn't really make any difference. We're still gonna do what we gotta do no matter what. So, and we know that Morrow County, the agriculture is vital. In fact, what are we? The #1 dairy producing county, we're like #1 in a lot of facets in agriculture. And we don't take a back seat to nobody. I think like Marion County's like the #1, but it's us in like Umatilla County. So cool.
Okay, well, thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, now we can move on to your board appointments.
Yes, you know, unfortunately, yeah, we have our position #5, which is the Irrigon position. Our board member and also our ag teacher here in the Irrigon area, he passed away on January the 5th unexpectedly. I mean, young man. I mean, when I say young, I mean he was in his early 50s, and totally unexpected. I'm on his advisory committee, and so we live in small communities, so everybody knows everybody, and we all, you know, we're on different boards and different budget committees and everything like that. And so it wasn't any different with Lynn Greer, our ag teacher. He was on my budget committee, and then he eventually migrated to the board. And he was a really good board member because he really made my guys think. And that was, I don't like board members to just sit there and don't say anything or do anything. And he always made them think. And he always liked to get the meeting moving along, you know, which is good. And I guess that's that FFA, you know, kind of mentality, right? So anyway, Lynn passed, and I have a long-standing budget committee member, Jake Case, that lives here in the Irrigon area. He works in the Irrigon area. He actually works for the city of Irrigon, and I asked him if he would be willing. I asked the board members, what do you think? And they were more than happy to see Jake, move up to the board themselves. So but the policy is that you guys have to make the appointment, because vector control, we don't have elected board members. And so they're appointed by the county commissioners. And so, what I'm asking is for Jake, just so that he can get used to the idea, because I'm always looking at my budget committee members to maybe move up to the board, because they're more familiar with what, is going on within our, within our financials and everything within the district. And so, Jake really doesn't know it yet, but I would like him to serve out the rest of Lynn's term, which would have expired on July the 12th. But I'm gonna ask him, and I'm sure the board will ask as well. I'm not gonna speak for them, but hopefully he will continue on after that and just and become and extend his boardship, so to speak. But right now, let's just I'm asking just for him to complete the remainder of Lynn Greer's term on position number 5. And then the other board member is Smokey Joe Whiteman. You guys, a lot of you know Smokey. He's been on our board since 2001. So he's a long-standing board member. These board members, they don't go away. I mean, these ones that really like being on the board, and unless they move out of the area, they really like being on the board. And I like it, the fact that they're knowledgeable, so it's easier for me, and the other thing too is that I don't know if you guys knew this, but the North Morrow Vector Control has to relocate. We're urban sprawl in Boardman, Oregon, believe it or not. And so we are currently residing on Port of Morrow property. We pay an annual lease to them, and it's basically, the lease is just it's nothing, and so here's all the rest of the leases up here, and then here we are down here. It's just a formality per se. So anyway, we've built buildings on the property. We own the buildings. We have been in discussions with the port, and at the last port commission meeting, they agreed to relocate us. And so it's officially in the minutes now. I'm asking for like 3 acres of deeded land. They're going to deed the land to us, so we wouldn't have to lease anymore. We would own. And as a matter of fact, next week, I think Thursday, I'm meeting with the port to hopefully solidify, like, this is where you're going to be, and it will hopefully be in agreement with that. But yeah, we got to get the ball rolling, because we're outgrowing our facility badly. And we also, like I was telling you about processing mosquitoes, we process our mosquitoes in a lab. Your kitchen is probably a better lab than our lab. And so I actually went out just this spring, just the other day, and we purchased I jokingly call it a she shed, right? And so we're converting that into a lab, so we can at least get those mosquitoes outside of our main building, where we get flyers every once in a while that fly around, and the mosquitoes that we bring in, it's not if they have West Nile virus. They do have West Nile virus. And I used to jokingly take the FedEx person the box that our shipping box with and all these specimens are on dry ice. And I said, here's your box of West Nile virus. And I wasn't kidding, because we actually live in, this is the #1 county for West Nile virus in the state of Oregon, right here where we live. We're even more so than Umatilla County. And I don't know, the only thing I can think of, it's because we have more state and federal wildlife lands than any other district in the state of Oregon. So that's probably why. Plus, we have the temperatures that we have over 100 degrees, and so that really gets those Culex mosquitoes going in the viremia. So anyway, Smokey Joe Whiteman is my other proposal for he wants to. He signed a letter of interest and says, yes, I want to, and so he wants to serve another 4 years. So it's Smokey Joe to serve another 4-year term, and Jake Case to just assume Lynn's remainder of of the position number 5's term on the board.
Well, I'll go ahead and make that motion. I move to appoint Jake Case to position 5 of the North Morrow Vector Control District for the remainder of that term, and Smokey Joe Whiteman to position 5.
I think it's actually position 2.
Yeah.
down below.
Oh,
Position 2.
yeah, I said 5 twice, didn't I?
Well, the action, that motion was typo there, so.
I will second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Well, thank you very much. It's good to hear from you.
You'll probably be hearing from me after July the 12th. To fully put Jake on the board.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
See you
Thank
then.
you, Greg.
Okay, next up is item E, which are juvenile justice update. Christie.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Christy Kinney, Juvenile Department Director. I'm here this morning just to give you guys a little bit of an update. You may have heard in the news, there's been some investigation within the Oregon Youth Authority. So just to kind of, if you're not familiar, the Oregon Youth Authority would be youth that have potentially exhausted our system. So whether that's the services at a county level, and we then have to commit youth to the Oregon Youth Authority Care, which is state level agencies. They have residential programs as well as the youth correctional facility. And so back in, I believe it was mid-February, the governor had placed the director of Oregon Youth Authority on administrative leave pending an investigation into their, I believe it's their internal complaint system. There was a backlog of complaints. I'm not sure if you guys have followed the news, but that has kind of been in the news. So I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware. I am a part of the Directors Association, 36 counties, all the juvenile department directors. So we have monthly board meetings, quarterly meetings that I attend regularly to try to get updates. Oregon Youth Authority is at this meeting to give us these updates. So there's currently still looking into the backlog of complaints by the youth in the facilities or programs. So just wanting you guys to know the recent update we heard last week. The governor now has relieved Joe O'Leary, who was the previous director, who will no longer return, and has now appointed Jenna McClellan as the acting director of Oregon Youth Authority. She has agreed to remain as the acting director of OYA until they come to a decision on who the permanent new OYA director is. At our meetings, Jenna and staff of OYA have filled us in to the best of their ability, pending the investigation that's taking place, giving us updates, ensuring the counties that they are putting new practices or making sure they enforce previous policies, practices into making sure youth in these facilities are safe. Making sure that staff are continuing to be trained, as well as implementing new policies and practice to ensure that the backlog of cases gets up to speed, as well as new complaints be taken seriously and investigated appropriately. So just wanted to let you guys know, OIA again fills us in. They have informed me to let any commissioner, anybody in the county who wants further information, that they would be willing to take a call or reach out from the commissioners, county administrator, specifically Jenna McClellan and Sandra Santos, who she oversees the community services part of OYA, as well as field and residential programming. So they are continuing to follow up with this investigation and will continue to give us updates as these new updates come out. So just wanted to make sure you guys are aware. We're doing everything we can to ensure that the youth that are in Morrow County's care are treated appropriately, as well as making sure the youth in OYA's care are as well.
Thank you. I don't know if you can answer this. How many Morrow County youth do we currently have in the OYA authority?
You know, I had a conversation with Matt about this. Because it's under investigation, I don't know how, I would rather maybe not comment on how many. The investigation stems from potentially years before to now, so there's a lot we don't know. So I just don't know that I feel comfortable at this point sharing how many, in case they involve any of our youth. So, but as things progress, I would definitely share what I can when we have it.
Thank you.
Chair, just a comment, if that's okay. I asked Christy to
present this just because it has been in the news. Just in case, I mean, we do have some youth, and whether they're troubled or not, and in that situation, if you were to be, confronted by friends, family with any concerns, it is something that's at the state level. We're keeping as best track as we can, as much as they'd allow us to know, and Christie's kind of our point person on it. So this is one of those, if you do have questions or get questioned by someone, she would be your best resource and can connect you with any state resources to ask additional questions.
All
Absolutely.
right, well, thank you for that report.
Yeah, so just reach out if you have anything else, and if there's anything I can't, I'll point you in the right direction, hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Christie.
Good, next up, we have F, Boardman Senior Center, Senior Services Funding Request, and Karen is here.
Yeah, but Rick Weiss is supposed to be here. I just came along.
You were the wingman and now you're the front. Huh?
I was supposed to be in supporting him, and so I don't know where he's at. So, and since I love to come to the county commission meetings, and I'm serious about that. I'd rather be here than on Zoom because you can hear so much better. Anyway, I'm here today representing the Boardman Senior Center. And there's a letter in your packet that you obviously can see that Rick has written because it's longer than one paragraph. Because I would have said, gosh, I hear you have money, please send me some. But anyway, the senior center really is trying to come back to life after the COVID. I think we lost so many people during COVID, just not coming and attending, that we're trying really hard to get people interested and back in the building. And like the letter says, our facilities haven't had any remodeling or updating, anything done for the 20 years. So it's getting, and we had a company, okay, I'm gonna say, because we had a company that that's a subcontractor for Amazon, come to us the other day, and they want to come and do volunteer work, like they'll clean the carpets and do things that really are helpful if a volunteer does, and I don't have to pay 3,000 or a couple hundred or whatever it costs to clean carpet. And so so they came like on a Thursday to tell us, and on Saturday for breakfast, they sent 3 volunteers to help us, do breakfast. So 2 things, a shout out to Suffolk's for being the contractor, and for Amazon. I want people to understand that the trickle effect works in our Morrow County. So anyway, and we're needing new freezers. We have 4 regular home freezers, in a row. And it would be really great to have a really commercial freezer. And I think we are thinking that we can replace, like it'll take 2 home ones to make 1 commercial one. And, so there's just, when you get involved in a new organization, you find out there's no end to things that they could use or need, especially when they're, and here, the people that come there, we're past being able to physically do the carpet cleaning and stuff. I mean, it's one thing to be in the booster club when we're all 35 and 50, but it's one thing to be 75 and 80 or so anyway, I just would hope that you would consider giving us a donation for that's requested on our.
I guess I got a question, might be for Kevin or Matt, is the request is to release the funds that they were budgeted for. What's the?
So if you recall, when we put together the budget for the current fiscal year, one of the things that I had included in there was an expansion of funding for seniors program support. It wasn't necessarily specified. The
rationale behind the amount was, we have, Mr. Conklin or South Morrow County Seniors Matter receiving $40,000, and we moved that for this fiscal year from a temporary funding source to a more permanent funding source. And it was more of a recognition that there were two other, larger cities in the county that, could potentially benefit. We had requests historically from, the Stokes Landing up here in Irrigon, but we hadn't, been able to connect. I don't know. Anyways, we've heard from them since then, but so, the logic behind the amount that was budgeted was, took that 40,000 and multiplied it by 3. So there's $120,000. 40 of it was specifically, earmarked for, South Morrow County Seniors Matter. And the intention and the way that it was presented at the budget committee meeting was that the remaining 80,000 would be distributed, geographically to serve and support senior programs.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Does anybody have any did you have anything more you wanted to add before we ask you questions, or if there were
No, other
questions?
than I'm so excited for Heppner having such a great turnout and getting theirs off and running. And I know that 40,000 would have been incredible for them, so, yeah.
I guess I just have a quick question. Is it a commercial kitchen? You mentioned commercial.
Yes, we,
freezers. Okay.
in our facility, it's a commercial kitchen.
Okay, yeah. And so
Oh,
we're just-
we've got a Wolf. If you're into brand names, Wolf is a brand name of a high class,
Okay.
gas range.
Okay, thank you. All right.
That's something to brag about.
Well.
Get a wolf.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if I introduced myself. My name is Karen Pettigrew and I'm with representing the Boardman Senior Center.
Okay, any more questions of Karen? Right, I have a suggested motion here.
So I'll move to release the senior services funding in the amount of $40,000 to the Boardman Senior Center for senior programs and services.
I second that motion.
Yes,
Could maybe suggest amending that to also authorize us to go ahead and issue the payment. But it'll have to come back to the board.
And I'll amend that to issue the payment. So.
okay. All right, then moved and seconded with the amendment. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
All right, all opposed, motion carried.
Well, I appreciate your.
Well, thank you for your work on this. It's very important in the community, I know.
It's just, how life goes. I keep giving, other people a bad time about, that flashing sign on your forehead needs to say no. No. When people ask you to do things, just say no.
Well, I hope that never burns, and that light never burns out, because you do a lot in the community, and everybody appreciates it.
Well, you just love it, and I appreciate you guys standing up to.
Thanks, Karen. Okay. Next up, we have our legislative updates. Number one would be the DLTDC solar siting rules.
Okay, this one, Tamras and myself are on it. I'm presenter in her absence. The DLCD, Land Conservation Development Commission, was passed with, in previous legislative actions to create a rulemaking committee on solar siting rules. And they've opened it up to public comment. The public comment timeframe is in April, but they are having a meeting tomorrow, which might, because we anticipate them having the public hearing on April 11th and then making determination right there. So we'd like to get our information into them by tomorrow's meeting so that they can have that to mull over before the final item. In the link that's attached on this, it shows several different options on it. We have a letter here. They were kind of rounding on 3 different options, with the first one being just to continue under current legislation, to do a county, or the second one was to carry out countywide Goal 5 mapping and plan an exercise to put specific standards in, or adopt new set of rules, as the county. Our county is probably the most developed on solar energy in the state of, Oregon. And, from staff's view, the implementation under current rules has been fairly straightforward. About half the permits were done by the county, other half have been assisted by FSEC, and it seems to have worked out fairly straightforward. This letter kind of gives the opinion, let us continue to do that, and if you don't want to do that, adopt a new set of rules that allows the county to set the rules, and FSEC just more or less gives a blessing on that and doesn't circumvent those rules. We've got several big projects underway. Sunstone's about a year out from starting construction, and we have we hear tremblings of some other large, very large installations that are going to come in and request help here. One of the other things is we believe that while some of this is taking, most of this is taking care of on farmable land, arable land, that there is a, if the farmers are open to it, this is one nice way to allow certain parts to keep farming while also supplementing and diversifying their revenues. And so we're asking for approval for this letter to go to the DLCD for consideration and to see if there's any questions on that. As noted in the cover letter, there's some maps showing some of the areas. Stephen helped prepare those. I shot him a text letting him know that we're a little ahead of schedule, but I'm not sure if he's on or not. So any questions that you might have, considerations?
No, I mean, when I've, been seeing these come in, I haven't heard any big complaints from anybody about the way they've been cited and stuff, I always kind of like local control, but if the process that's being used seems to be working pretty good. So,
I have some concerns about of reaching a point where our solar tips us into a scenario where we have a sort of a domino effect where we lose enough farm ground that we start losing farm support services, and then we start losing people in towns that are really dependent on those farming contributions, because the solar makes the landowner a great deal of money and it's great for them, and that's it. So the language in option 3 that requires EFSC to concur with the county finding regarding mitigation measures, I think that's something that we really need to be strongly considering moving forward, as this is something that needs to be looked at with everything that we do. Because right now, I don't think we've crossed that line, but I think there is going to be a line. And Morrow County is looking at growing to a point where I think we're going to cross it. And we need to be considering that before we get there. That's my opinion on it. So I like the letter. I would really want to strongly emphasize that I want that to be something that we can hold companies accountable to rather than having them voluntarily do it. That's my thoughts.
I don't know if you've read the economic impact analysis that was done. It's pretty hefty for Sunstone. But it really goes into not being a farmer, not understanding all the economic, I know the economics kind of, but it goes into everything you were just talking about deeply. And that's kind of the emphasis of how now we're coming up with the mitigation, which we'll be tackling here pretty soon. What I've always wrestled with is over here, you've got, property rights, and over here is, does the county try to control which way people use their property for economic reasons? Do we favor this kind of economy over this kind of economy? Economies change, of course, look at Morrow County, we totally lost what we had in South County back in 1998, whole bill. And we've progressed on to other things, so that's just something I kind of wrestle with in my mind is, you know, does, you know, the property rights, as a farmer, whoever, do they have the right? How much rights do they have to use the land the way they want to, they own, you know? So that's just, you know, but that economic analysis that was done was very extensive, very good reading. It's, they go into everything, so anyway. But I'm, like I said, my original statement was, seems to be going, the letter says to keep it the way it is. So I would be in favor of that, sending that letter.
So I'm in support of the letter. I guess I'll make comment, you know, through Korea and some of the developers, they talk about why they wanted to do the Goal 5 and the mapping and stuff is so that the FSAC process is very expensive and takes a long time. And so they were hoping that, you know, if they could identify ground that didn't make sense, you know, in a certain area that yield was 50 bushels and you could identify through experience that this ground only yield 35 bushels, that made a lot of money. To expedite that process. As far as, you know, I'm with Dave, the personal property rights, I think that the owner of the property has, you know, if it's an allowed use in EFU and they want to do that, I think that's their decision. As far as Gus is concerned, I can understand that, but I don't know that anybody made that analysis when we started taking ground out of production for CRP reasons. It had the same effect of you aren't selling fertilizer, seed, equipment, on and on, all the things that Gus was. So I don't see this difference to the distinction, whether you take it out and the county generates more revenue off of it, and the farmer generates more revenue off of it by going into solar, or if it sits out there fallow and someone's getting paid not to. So I'm in support of the letter, so I will move to approve the letter regarding ELPD.
You want to hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, then move to second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried 2-1. Okay, next up would be the Oregon Wildlife Risk Map letter. And Justin, you're taking that, aren't you?
That's right. So at the last Board of Commissioner meeting, and I'll actually pull it up here on my computer. Last, Board of Commissioner meeting, when we were just had discussions about the wildfire hazard mitigation map. An issue, of course, throughout the state right now with the state looking at data, creating this map that has wildfire risk. When you look at the map, it's basically a giant red. It looks like more of a state indication saying that the entire state could catch on fire and all insurance rates should go up. I think as related to the last Board of Commissioner meeting, there's, I think as Chair Sykes had mentioned, there's a lot of comments about this for the public and concern because it's a direct effect on possibly insurance rates, requirements of the property. And so it's about part of that. I know the state's looking at that right now during the legislative session. So I think even our local legislators believe that this will be changed during this session, that there's a lot of pushback from the whole state on this. And even up to about 2 weeks ago, there was a time for all landowners to appeal if they want to individually, the designation on their property. Many did, some may not have. And so the last meeting, the Board of Commissioners were considering what can we do or should we do. And one of the ideas proposed was to draft a letter more just indicating the counties, as a county government, is concerned with this map. You know, sending this to the state, but also as a public declaration saying, here's the concerns and things that should be considered. So part of that, I drafted a letter. It could have been a lot longer, right? You look at this, and be a lot of research, but I also realize sometimes folks in the legislature and others don't read, 20 pages. They look at this in some of the brief overview. So that's why I tried to capture. I'm definitely open to recommendations for changes. This was just something kind of short. I have the statement of the county government's concern with this. It does affect its constituents throughout there, and they were being reached out to quite a bit. So that's the background I have on it.
I just have to say, I was really pleased with the way you wrote it, because it was, you know, I don't know if I was expecting just a letter that said, hey, we want it changed, and so, but you really went into finding a path for them too.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I appreciate that, not just, you know, anyway, that's what I personally like about it. You kind of took it beyond just we're opposed to it, but, you know, here's where you could go.
I think that was a factor when considering it also because they're used to a lot of just no people. I think the legislature and just then the government saying, no, we just don't like it. Not always giving solutions and saying, hey, we'll work with you. And so sometimes you realize, hey, this is here's some steps we can do, we can work on. I think Mike has his hand raised too.
Mike, yeah, you got a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I attended a meeting last September, an AOC meeting down in Salem regarding this. Nobody, no commissioners from Morrow County were attendance that. The Department of Forestry, the fire marshal, and then the representative from Oregon State University that actually created the map and explained how it was created. You know, was not created by, you know, any kind of site visit. It was just all, you know, historic weather patterns, historic fire behavior, and a bunch of algorithms. And so it's absolutely not without its faults. And during that meeting, all of the commissioners that were attended and gave testimony, all but two were really opposed to this map. The two that were in favor, one was a commissioner from Deschutes County, and I'm sorry, it escapes me who the other commissioner was. So this map and this process is very unpopular statewide. I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Mike. Okay, so any other questions of Justin or discussion? Well, I guess, any other questions of Justin? Okay, and then we'll get a motion.
I'll move to approve the letters in opposition to Oregon wildfire hazard map.
I second that.
Seconded, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, thank you, and thanks, Justin, for your work on that. HB 3362, tire tax for rail, tire pollution, and wildlife crossings. This Matt?
Yes, this is one that's come out. AOC issued an opposition to this bill. There was and quite frankly, it's a concern for rural counties where we have a lot of vehicles with a lot of tractors and tires and such. And that 4% tax could have a onerous impact on the rural communities. There was a public hearing held on March 3rd. Overwhelmingly, all the testimony was in opposition. There was a few support, but most of it was in opposition. This action is just asking of the commission if they would if you'd like to direct staff to prepare anything on this, or just kind of continue to monitor it and see how it's going.
I have a question. Do you know where the funding is supposed to go for this new tax?
Yeah, it's supposed to go to you know, like wildlife crossings and you know, to oppose.
If this was gonna go to county roads, I might consider it, but
Yeah.
Well, so when I clicked on the link, 50 cents of every dollar collected would go to public rail transit or public transit. 25 cents of every dollar would go to tire pollution and mitigation and study. And then 25 cents of every dollar would go to wildlife crossings. I'm with you. If it was going to help backfill ODOT's budget, as much as I hate an additional tax,
that would be something that would be an interesting idea.
where the tires are actually causing the impact, but for these other things, no, I'm with you.
I
So I don't know what we want to do, if it's, have Matt, do we want to craft have Matt or someone craft a letter and potential testimony for one of us to testify if the opportunity comes up? Is that what we want to do?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I'll make that motion to direct staff to craft a letter in opposition with their potential testimony
In opposition.
in opposition to this.
By our state legislative liaison.
Right? Sure.
All right.
Yeah. Understood. I will second that.
Okay. Then move in second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion carried. Okay. Next up would be, yeah. Next up is correspondence, Valerie, bank correspondence, okay. Next up, commissioner reports. Jeff, we'll start on.
So I
there.
see Commissioner Dan Dorn from Umatilla County showed up. And he didn't formally get put on the agenda, so I will yield my commissioner report to see if Commissioner Dorn would like to tell us on what's happening with their small scale nuclear legislation demonstration project.
Thanks, Commissioner. First of all, I apologize for being late. I visited you in Heppner this morning and then came here.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. It's a lovely drive. So what Commissioner Winholtz is talking about is House Bill 2410. It's a bill that Umatilla County submitted to create a path for a demonstration project of an SMR nuclear energy driven project. We did it on a basis of a demonstration project because of the referendum that was voted on. I think that was voted on in 1980 that actually put up roadblocks to nuclear power in Oregon. A lot of people think that referendum was actually a direct moratorium on nuclear energy. What it really was is statutory. What it created was statutory rules that were based around two things. One, the major one is waste, and then the siting and how it gets sited. It basically says until the federal government has a permanent depository for waste, Oregon won't build nuclear plants. While the federal government does have what they term as a permanent, but they call it an interim, so it doesn't really fit Oregon's statute. The other part of the statute is a referendum of the people to build a nuclear plant. So 2410 includes everything from regulatory to rulemaking and the weaving of the federal regulations into the policy. And it allows for the building of a SMR nuclear plant in Umatilla County if by referendum the people in Umatilla County vote for it. So it's the first bill that's nuclear bill that's been introduced. And back up a little bit, nuclear bills are introduced every year in the legislature. Nuclear energy driven bills, they're introduced every year. This is the first one that has Democratic co-sponsors on it and actually has bicameral and bipartisan support. Does that mean it's going to make it all the way through? Probably long odds, to be honest with you, but it has driven the discussion. Another bill that this is the logo bill for HB 2410. There's been several other counties and municipalities and groups that have signed on to this since this logo bill or this logo page was distributed to the legislature. This is actually what we did as Umatilla County. Did not just want to shotgun another SMR bill because it's important to us that we do find energy sources. You guys talked about a couple this morning and the issues that they create and the hurdles that they create. What you didn't touch on is some of the massive transmission issues that are coming to us too. And legislative wise, I know Commissioner Wentholz is in the middle of that, and those are tough subjects to have and conversations to have right now. B2H, basically 24 years and it hasn't turned to shovel. And so the one thing about SMRs is the ability to microgrid projects. HB 2410 says that the demonstration project cannot interfere with community resilience. So whether it's feeding EPA or a direct end user, if the power goes down, if the SMR goes down, it cannot interfere with the power that's going to the residences, the existing power structure. It is a resilience bill too, so it gets complicated when you start building that in. But it is a complete SMR bill. Again, we've had 2 hearings. We'll know at the end of next week, like all other bills, if it comes out or not. There's a separate bill, SB 380, I believe it is, that is an SMR study bill, and it does not have bipartisan support. What we may end up seeing in the end, as everybody knows, legislatively, there's a lot of compromises and other items, is a bill that will combine 2410 with 380 into a study bill that designates Umatilla County, or that could even be left out in our, if this moves forward, we would really hope and have high hopes that it moves forward as it is, but if it gets compromised up, we're not objectionable to that because we need power and we need to find a source, long-term source. So at this point, we're still looking for support for HB 2410 and what it means. One thing that we've learned through this, because we've been interacting for the last 2 years with the federal government, the Biden administration put a lot of effort into SMRs and nuclear power. 3 Mile Canyon's getting restarted. Diablo is getting restarted. There's several nuclear plants that across the U.S. that are being recertified. Nuclear right now is 45% of our carbon-free energy that's generated in the U.S. and 20% of all power that's generated in the U.S. Just across the river, 30 miles away, there's 4 SMRs that have been identified to be constructed and come online in 2032. And so the real goal here is to have identified power, not for tomorrow or not for the next day, but we need to start looking at what our energy needs are going to be, with or without data centers. Our needs are huge. When you have 10,000 horsepower, 10,000s of horsepower of irrigation pumps, food processing, even the casino, we have a lot of high energy uses in Umatilla County, and we would like to attract more. And this is an economic resilience and stability bill. Again, I apologize for being late, and any questions that you guys have, it does get complicated. I didn't finish my train of thought with the feds. Is we've operated, because of the Biden administration's big push for nuclear. He established what's called the GAIN, and that is the Nuclear Institute. It's a combination of the private and public to identify portions of the U.S. that could even be mapped and be available for nuclear or SMR projects. SMRs generate much less waste than light water reactors. And but they still generate waste. And what they do with the waste is it's designed to be casked and stored on site until there's a permanent repository identified. The GAIN process went through and asked for submissions of communities throughout the US that would be willing or would want to house permanent cask repositories. They got over 200 responses, positive responses across the US. And the Trump administration continues to march forward with identifying those as permanent sites and how those regulations, processes, and policies will fall in place. So it's not coming off the table with this administration. In fact, it's probably being accelerated to some degree. We'll be back in DC the mid-April for a couple of meetings on these subjects. And to me, it's an opportunity for us to start putting regulations, policies, procedures, and statutory requirements into place as these projects start to come online. We need to know how to do it, and I think if we get those steps in place now, even we'll be beyond 2032, but we won't be beyond 2090, or we will be able to identify some positive energy generation that will last and will not, as you guys have talked about, contaminate additional agriculture land, transmission, and all the things that renewables that we work with today create. So I'll stop there. I kind of rambled on there a little bit, but any questions?
I guess I got a couple. This is tailor-made for Umatilla County.
It is Commissioner Sykes, and what's we did have when GAIN produced a map for us of places in Umatilla County that can house or would be available to SMRs. You just can't put an SMR anywhere. They look at population, water tables, everything. Actually, the #1 spot, and they did Morrow and Umatilla County together for us when we asked them to do that last spring or last winter. Actually, the #1 spot is the old Carty coal fire plant because of a lot of different reasons. We did this as a Umatilla County bill because of the referendum portion of it. And that's the only reason that we did it as a Umatilla County bill. We did it with expectations that other counties are going to ask to be included, but it would still be a referendum for those individual counties.
Yeah.
So, basically, I guess I'm trying to drill down to, are you here asking us to do something, or is this an informational discussion, or?
Maybe both, Commissioner Sykes. We would definitely entertain the support of Morrow County as other counties have and lend their logo to the vote yes packet. We would extremely enjoy that because it is important.
Let me ask you then, if that was the case, if we were to investigate or to look at that as a commission, what process did you guys go through to roll this out to the public? Because it could be, you want to make sure everybody knows. I mean, if you're going to cite a nuclear reactor in Morrow County, the public better doggone well
Right.
some input on it.
Um,
And I'm not saying, like you said, it's years down the road, but still.
It is. There's
Yeah.
opposition out there. There is no doubt about it. In fact, I've sat down and had lunch with probably 15 of the strongest people that were involved in the 1980 People's Referendum.
In Umatilla County, there's 15, or is there
No,
strong
this is across
opposition
the
in
state.
Umatilla? Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
actually, in Umatilla County, there's probably only been 2 folks that have contacted me.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm guessing that might be Morrow County, but I don't like to guess
No, no.
too far out.
Yeah.
Because
I get
I
it.
guess
I
not too
get it.
good, is, you
There's-
know, what happened.
One of the interesting things, Commissioner Sykes, is that Gain did a national survey on favorability of SMRs and nuclear energy in general. And right now it sits at about 64.5%. And it's equal between Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals. It goes up and down a little bit, but it remains above 50%. There's been a couple of polls done in Oregon, and I'm not at liberty to give results at all, but they're not dissimilar than what the national trend is. A little bit lower, but not very much, not what you would think for Oregon and living next to Hanford. The first thing everybody says is, what about him? That has nothing to do with energy driven. That's a liquid waste and not a solid waste.
And I think that's part, if you're going to propose this as a possibility in Morrow County, I think and that's why I ask it, is get the education down good, so
Yep.
people know, like you just explained, this is not like a big Hanford nuclear plant, you know, and let people know exactly what it is.
Yep.
So they don't, because I was around when they shut down the plant down, you know.
Well, me too.
And
Trojan.
you were too, so,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, you know, a lot of the opposition died off or gone. The
you know
younger
what's fun-
generation have a whole different attitude about it. Last our
yes.
younger generation
The-
died.
It really has. I mean, I was looking on here. Columbia County is not on here right now, but Columbia County has been one of the most heavily invested into support for this, and at least commissioner wise. But they're much in the same, when they lost Trojan, they lost their long-term energy and have not gained that back yet. It's a challenge for them for sure. So, but again, a lot of the opposition still sits in that county also, just because of the location of Trojan. It's not an easy sell, because of the complications of nuclear and then on the other hand, it's an extremely easy sell. We've had a lot of legislators come out and take tours, energy tours, both in Umatilla, and then Umatilla Electric's brought them to Morrow County. And when they see all of the transmission and all of the substations, it's really amazing how quickly they understand the need for sited energy. And it's been an enjoyable summer because it's taken that. We actually hired Tonkin legal firm, and then the lobbyist that the lawyer and lobbyist that we hired was the lead legislative counsel for several years. And she has just put her heart and soul into this. And she is very much, she'll tell you, she is very much a liberal hippie that's only 32 years old. And she is a huge believer in nuclear. As your age groups come down, the support goes up. So that the 40 and below is much greater than the 40 and above. And as that age group comes down, the support for SMRs and continuation, even of light water reactors, continues to go up. So education is definitely the #1 key here, because my kids surprise the heck out of me. They know more about SMRs just through conversations than I ever knew. And they're definitely not involved in the energy sector. But it was a discussion for them in college and where, for me, I mean, when I went to college, it was all about shutting down nuclear. And it's a whole different.
If you want to be ostracized, you come out and be in favor.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, a
We're
lot of,
not part of the group, you know.
a lot of people blame me for being stupid. I told them, well, I'm not running again, so.
Well, I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, no,
Commissioner Moore.
absolutely.
Well, first comment, I applaud your efforts. Thank you. I think this is worth pursuing. Is there a possibility if we were to decide that this is something we would like to be included as we want to be a part of potentially the test sites? Would that be something that Umatilla would be like, absolutely not, this is our baby?
No, not at all. I think that you guys,
Yeah,
I would encourage, discussion between you guys before you ever made that. I mean,
absolutely.
I think there's 2 ways or 3 ways. Do nothing at all and just say, hey, nice job and good luck. Support the concept or ask us to include, I mean, Morrow County in this. And I think that it's a little, we're getting ready to do our first amendment because we are gonna include consultation with the tribes in this. And we're negotiating what that's gonna say at this point. And then there's some other technical changes that are going on right now. It's quite a ways down the track, so I'm not sure that including Morrow County at this time would be I don't see anything against it at all. Just to administratively get it done, because if it doesn't fall out by the end of next week, we'll have to wait again. But obviously support would be greatly
If
appreciated.
you mentioned the party plan out there. The
If you guys
PG
want me to, I can get you those maps they did for.
Yeah,
That
no,
would be
my
nice. I would like
question
that.
would be, you know, I mean, that sounds like a good spot for me, but when that coal plant was shut down, I mean, it was the people in PGE, the ratepayers, that said, we don't want that in the end, you know? And they
Well,
said,
it was
wasn't it?
it was PGE and the shareholders that says that we don't want it in the end because we can rate base the decommissioning costs. And by acquiring other resources, you know, the guaranteed rate of return is based off of the assets that they have for generation.
Well, yeah, but also took the kibosh on 2 gas generating plants and said, let's go all in on
Well,
green.
Well, the state says that you can't build another gas, electric generating plant that's powered by natural gas.
Until there's a carbon, until they
I
have the
I
carbon.
was under the impression that
You were,
PGE, you know, people in the PGE system or something were adamantly against coal fire. And they were put a lot of pressure on the company to shut that plant down. So I don't know if that would be, if they would look at this and you would get the same reaction or not, because I guess they still own the property.
Well, they still own the property.
and I'm not saying that that's where it go. We've sat down and met with Columbia Generating because one of the first early questions, once you get past waste, is, well, who's gonna operate it? And how are you gonna fund it? Because they are extremely expensive. Well, first of all, we would not be the operator. But we would look to somebody like Columbia Generating, Energy Northwest, some of the people that have those expertise. The one blessing that we do have is we have the skill set people for construction and erection of an SMR within 40 miles of where we are today. And that was a huge portion of the game. Question is, how do you find and map where today that skill set of labor is and operating? And we have it because of because of the Hanford complex, because of Columbia Generating, because of Energy Northwest, it's a huge hurdle for other places to get over.
Awesome. So my second question, and I just don't understand, you mentioned that this could not be built in a way where it would affect users if it went down. So where does the power go if it doesn't go to the users?
End users.
End
So
users.
if it's, if you look at it as a microgrid, say Lamb Weston built a new processing plant or a data center.
Uh-huh.
An SMR, you could build, and they're modular,
Uh-huh,
so it
yeah.
could be 60, 120, 180. So that would feed that plant. Now, that plant would have to be fed by a base, whether it's Umatilla Electric or Pacific Core or whoever that is. But if that SMR had to shut down for maintenance or went down, the rest of the network would not be affected. The only thing that would need additional feed would be that microgrid.
Okay, all right, I understand.
Now, on top of that, you could microgrid and say that food processing plant only needed 50 megawatts, but you had 110 megawatts. Then you would feed that additional into a transmission line that would be, that power would be wheeled much like they are today, even through renewables.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from Dan?
So I don't think I have any questions for Dan. Like I said, when I'd mentioned this last time is that I'd seen Dan and their lobbyists do a presentation to Korea, so that's, I brought this up.
Well,
So, I guess I would, it sounds like, we would be in support of lending to a letter. Now, would it be too late, Dan, next week? We're gonna have to have a special meeting to approve something else. If at that point we approved a
That
letter.
would be very much appreciated.
So if you could get us a letter in support for us to consider at our next meeting.
Yep.
If
I
you guys are
think that'd be
agreeable with that,
appropriate, yes.
well, okay, I wanna make it clear, the letter is
in support of 2410.
not adding Morrow County to it.
No, and I'll address that, I don't disagree with Gus or I think that'd be great to get Morrow County part of it. But I think at this stage, it would muddy the waters because this is a demonstration project in Umatilla County to prove out the feasibility of a small modular reactor system.
Yeah.
And I think that if
Or
we
more,
start,
yeah.
getting it, it muddies the water too much in legislation. I think it's because, to go back to something you'd asked Dave about, have they done outreach to the people of Umatilla County? One of the things that it says here is that in order for them to be able to move forward, even if this legislation passes before that they could cite a project, that'd have to be referred a measure to the people of Umatilla County for their approval
They would
or
have to
rejection.
Yeah.
So they get the ability to do it from the state, and then they have to go ask the local constituents,
It's a good way
is
to
it
do
okay if we so?
I understand that, but when people say, I just wanna make sure that what people in Morrow County are gonna read it, the Morrow County commissioners are supporting citing a nuclear plant in Morrow County. Because
yeah.
this, what you said, it gets into the fine, the fine print
Yes.
of what happens, but people that see it or see it on our agenda, they're gonna go, oh, the Morrow County Commission wants to put a nuke plant, So I wanna know, I wanna give a little time and kind of put our toe in the water if we're, but it sounds like you just wanna support them with a
Yep,
letter.
that-
Yeah, well, I'm good with that, yeah.
A letter in support of HB 2410.
In fact, that might be a little way to put the toe in the water, to say, then find out what people's reaction are, make sure it's on our agenda, well documented, letter in support of, so.
But if there's any other information you guys want, from me, Gain, or any of this, we have a stack of stuff that we've gotten over the last 2 years. as this was put together, so it's interesting.
Thank you. So do you need any other action, Matt, from us?
No, what I'll do is I'll reach out to Commissioner Doran and get some information and help develop a framework for a letter.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you guys. I can't say
Yeah,
thanks
it's
enough.
good to see you.
Yep, thank you guys.
Okay, still on commissioners' reports. Or do you have something, Jeff, you wanted to add?
No, just, last week there was the Korea meeting, nothing of significance happened there. It was the first meeting that the new executive director kind of ran the meeting, which is Commissioner James William from Lake County. And the main agenda items were legislation that Korea is watching and supporting. I think that's it that I have for Commissioner report.
I don't have anything to report. Gus, do you have
I
anything
also
on?
don't have anything to
Okay.
report. I hopefully next time I will with,
Okay,
the EOCA.
okay, good. Yeah, see how that, because that is, like I said, that's what lots of people have talked to me about that. So anyway, okay, so with that said, next item is adjourned. Any more business to come before the commission? Okay, with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.